From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
Every day we came and they say the borders are closed. And we are asking why they are closed. You know, we heard in the news that Egyptian borders are open. So what is the question? What's the problem? I want someone to answer me what's the problem.
We go to Gaza, where Egypt has supposedly unsealed the Rafah border crossing after years of closure. But less than a week later, Egypt is turning hundreds of people away. Democracy Now's Sharifa Bokdous and Nicole Salazar are one of the few teams of foreign journalists to witness the scene. Then to the Congo.
The women of Congo are the center of my heart. They're in the heart of the world, the heart of Africa. If you rape the center of the world, if you exploit the center of the world, you destroy the heart of the world. Today, we are about taking back the heart. Jama mamas, you are the strongest women. And I promise you, City of Joy will be the place where the women of Congo turn their pain to power.
Eve Ensler and Congolese human rights activist Christine Schuler describe her on the opening of the City of Joy, a center for survivors of gender violence in the eastern Congo. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Japanese authorities are now admitting the nuclear crisis at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant was far more severe than they'd previously admitted. On Monday, Japan's Nuclear and Industrial Safety Agency more than doubled its estimate for the amount of radiation that leaked from the plant in the first week of the disaster in March. Meanwhile, the agency has also admitted for the first time that full nuclear meltdowns occurred at 3 of the plant's reactors. Yemeni President Ali Abdullah Saleh remains in Saudi Arabia seeking medical treatment 4 days after he was injured in an attack on his presidential compound. Yemen's acting leader says Saleh would return in days, but there's growing pressure for Saleh to step down from power. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton called for an immediate transition of power. Meanwhile, new reports suggest Saleh may have been far more seriously injured than acknowledged. U.S. officials say Saleh suffered burns on 40% of his body and has a collapsed lung. The Syrian government's threatening to intensify its attacks on demonstrators after claiming that as many as 120 Syrian security personnel were killed in the northwestern city of Deir al-Shughur. The claim has not been independently verified, but demonstrators fear the Syrian regime will use it as an excuse for a new government onslaught. An estimated 1,200 civilians have died in recent months since the protests began. Dozens of Bahraini medical officials who treated anti-government protesters were charged with attempting to overthrow the nation's monarchy Monday. A total of 47 health workers, including 23 doctors and 24 nurses, were arraigned in a closed-door hearing. In Libya, NATO warplanes have bombed the headquarters of Libyan state TV as well as military barracks near Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi's compound. The attacks came hours after NATO Secretary General Anders Fogh Rasmussen said he will ask NATO countries to step up their participation in the military campaign against Gaddafi. Defense Secretary Robert Gates and General David Petraeus are urging President Obama to reject calls for a substantial withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan this summer. Despite growing opposition to the nearly 10-year-old war, Gates and Petraeus are arguing that to leave too early would imperil hard-fought gains. The war in Afghanistan is already the longest in U.S. history. Gates spoke in Afghanistan on Monday.
If we can keep the military pressure on through the remainder of this year, keep what we've captured from these guys in the South, keep disrupting them as you are up here, and they see that they are not going to win, that then creates the opportunity for a political reconciliation.
A growing number of Democrats and Republicans in Congress are calling for withdrawal. President Obama's top economic advisor, Austin Goolsbee, has decided to resign less than a year after he became chair of the Council of Economic Advisors. The announcement comes just days after the government revealed the nation's official unemployment rate has jumped back up to 9.1%. The nation's facing its worst unemployment slump since the 1930s. CBS News reports about 6.2 million Americans, 40% 45% of all unemployed workers in the country have been jobless for more than 6 months, a higher percentage than during the Great Depression. House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi has called for the House Ethics Committee to investigate Democratic Congressmember Anthony Weiner of New York. On Monday, Weiner admitted to having what he described as inappropriate and explicit conversations with 6 women over Twitter, Facebook, email, and occasionally on the phone. Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick has announced he will refuse to sign the state up for a controversial federal program that requires local police to forward fingerprints of every person they arrest to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The program, called Secure Communities, allows federal immigration agents to pursue deportation against those found to be undocumented or a non-citizen with a criminal record. Last week, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo suspended New York's involvement in the Secure Communities program. Illinois pulled out of the program in May. 2 other states, Washington and Minnesota, have declined to join the program. More than 3,000 participants from over 180 countries are gathering in Bonn, Germany this week for climate talks aimed to lay the foundation for the upcoming UN ministerial-level climate talks in Durban, South Africa. The Bonn talks come as the International Energy Agency has released new figures showing the world's energy-related carbon emissions broke record highs in 2010. Tove Riding is heading the Greenpeace delegation at the talks.
It's easier for politicians to respond after a catastrophe has happened than to show and be proactive, to actually try to prevent the catastrophes before they happen. And that's the essence of what we need in these negotiations. We need proactive politicians who actually take the opportunities to solve this problem before we end up in a climate disaster. After all, what we're talking about here is actually millions of green jobs. It's to transform our societies to energy systems that are safe, that are stable, and that are based on renewable energy and energy efficiency.
Here in the United States, climate-related emergencies are occurring across the country. Arizona has declared a state of emergency as it continues to battle one of the state's worst wildfires. The so-called Wallow Fire has now destroyed over 230,000 acres, including the majority of the Apache National Forest. Meanwhile, the swollen Missouri River is threatening to submerge the Iowa town of Hamburg. If efforts to secure a faltering levee fail, the town's 1,100 residents could find themselves under as much as 8 feet of water for a month or more. Emergency officials anticipate record-breaking floods along the Missouri River throughout the summer. Meanwhile, record-setting heat in Texas and other southern states is putting children and the elderly in particular at risk. In Canada, a Senate page has lost her job after staging a controversial demonstration on the floor of the governing body. 21-year-old Brigitte DePape staged an unprecedented protest by walking onto the Senate floor Friday carrying a sign that read, "Stop Harper," referencing Prime Minister Stephen Harper. Following her removal from her job, DePape called for a Canadian version of the Arab Spring movement that has swept through the Middle East and North Africa.
I think that it's defeatist to say, oh, we have a Harper majority government, and, you know, we'll let them do as much as they can for the next 4 years. Frankly, we need to act now. We need to stop the conservative agenda. 3/4 of Canadians disagree with the Harper agenda. Conservative values are not Canadian values. And so we need to take to the streets now.
Following her loss of employment, Brigitte DePape was offered a job by documentary filmmaker Michael Moore, who praised her act of civil disobedience as an iconic moment. In legal news, a millionaire from Chicago has managed to buy his way out of jail despite being found guilty of killing 2 British citizens in a hit-and-run accident in Florida. 36-year-old Ryan Levin faced up to 30 years in jail for 2 counts of vehicular homicide and fleeing an accident scene. Levin, who drove a $120,000 Porsche, initially denied involvement in the accident. He avoided a jail sentence by paying an undisclosed settlement to the widows of his victims. Instead of jail, he was sentenced to 2 years house arrest, 10 years probation. This was not Levin's first offense. In 2006, he ran over a Chicago police officer. He could still be extradited to Illinois for violating his parole. The Puerto Rican independence activist Norberto Gonzalez Claudio has pled not guilty to charges stemming from his alleged involvement in the 1983 armored truck robbery of about $7 million in Connecticut. Gonzalez was arrested Friday after 25 years on the run. Authorities allege the bank heist was committed to fund the activities of Los Macheteros, a militant organization that seeks Puerto Rican independence. In 2005, the FBI shot dead the leader of Los Macheteros, Filiberto Ojeda Rios. In Wisconsin, more than 1,000 Wisconsin workers marched through Madison Monday to protest Governor Scott Walker's budget repair bill that slashes collective bargaining rights and funding for education, health care, and seniors programs. 8 people were arrested. Pilar Schiavo is with National Nurses United.
People are angry. They understand, the impact of this budget, I think, is really sinking in for people. And you see, when you get thousands of people out in the streets on a Monday at noon, I think it really is a testament to the fact that they are, willing to stand up and fight, that they're frustrated, that, Walker is going too far, and that they're going to defend their rights. So these Badger Care cuts mean actual death sentences for people. I mean, Walker and the politicians are actually signing death sentences if they pass this budget.
Among those arrested by Madison police was documentary filmmaker Sam Mayfield. In news from Florida, 4 activists from the group Food Not Bombs were arrested Monday for feeding the homeless in the city of Orlando. 3 other members of the group were arrested last week. And the death toll in Germany from an outbreak of E. coli has reached at least 22, making it one of the deadliest E. coli outbreaks in modern history. Another 2,300 people have been infected. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.